Welcome everyone. This video is for week 11 of the semester. Hopefully you survived week 10. I know it was a big week with 2 chapters. And so this week we will return to just 1 chapter. However, don't get too comfortable in that because next week in week 12 we'll be back to 2 again. So week 11 runs from Monday, March 18th until Saturday, March 23rd. What's due is right here. So we're reading chapter 13. We are finishing up middle childhood with the psychosocial elements of development. And so you'll have the reading check for chapter 13. This week we also have the 4th observations and development. And then the Dear Abby letters, the reflective journal, as well as finishing up the discussion board. I know it's a crazy end of the semester. Just bear with us or bear with me. I'm happy to answer questions or help along with any of the assignments. As I mentioned, we're back to 1 chapter, finishing up middle childhood. This week, I'm going to go into a few of the assignments real quick and just highlight a question or 2. In the reflective journal, we're talking about blended families and step families, and there's a video to watch as well as reading in the textbook on it. And so with that, I wanted to share, every semester I share a little bit about my experience with blended families, and then this semester I had a student in one of the sections prepare a document, a brief little 1-2 page article about her experience as a parent, as the parent side of it. I share this because in this semester and other semesters, I received a lot of students' feedback of saying, I enjoyed reading about blended families, but I really don't have much experience with them. As we know, inside the church, as members, we have a higher rate of nuclear families, of a husband, wife, and children in the home. That's not always the case, but we have a higher percentage of that compared to the world or to the culture, especially in the United States. And so I like to share a little bit about that to help you guys understand beyond just the reading. So briefly, a recap of my childhood. So I was born, and 6 weeks later, my mom took my brother and my sister and I and moved out of her home with my dad and moved to another state to live with my grandparents. And then the divorce between my parents was finalized about a year later. And so my first couple years of my life, I didn't see my dad. I don't have much memory of it, but there's no pictures of me with him. I didn't see him. I didn't visit him. I was with my mom and my siblings. My mother remarried when I was 4. I had just turned 4, and to my stepdad, and they were married for about 3 years. I don't remember exactly how old I was when they divorced, but I do have the memory of seeing him pack up his suitcase, of him not being there anymore. So, like I said, they divorced when I was about 7 or 8, somewhere in there. And then my mom was a single mom again until I was 14, and she remarried to my stepdad now, and they've been married for a long time. I don't even know how many years. Well, I guess 15 years. They got married when I was 14. I think they're celebrating 15 or 16 years this summer. And so it's been great to have a stepdad again. He is my dad. I see him more as a father. My children know him as grandpa. But with all these changes, I went through blended families, step families. My dad, so my mom's on her 3rd marriage. My dad is on his 4th marriage. And I don't have a relationship with him now. I just know that he's married and lives in Idaho with his wife and her children. But throughout my childhood and adolescent years, there were step families, step siblings, blended families, and all the things in between. As a child, as the children's perspective of that, it was hard. I was the youngest of the 3. I think it impacted my older brother and sister immensely, much more than it did me. For example, my mom's 2nd marriage, when I was 4, my sister was 9, and my stepdad was an alcoholic. He had several older sons that would come and live with us off or on in our basement. from my recollection, but I think my sister remembers much more about that, those years of our lives. And so to me, I think it's a blessing that I was young, that I don't have great memory of that. When my mom remarried, when I was in high school, to my stepdad now, he had 2 children from a previous marriage. And for a little bit, we were what I would classify as blended, that we lived together more, depending on the week. His kids would come live with us. And what was interesting about that is that his youngest is the same age as me. And so there was some, I wouldn't say competition. We went to different high schools, but we had some of the same friends, just mutual friends. And so that was a little weird, to go to school and someone asked me about my stepbrother, because I wasn't used to that. And so it was a harder transition. But however, within a few years, his children moved out and on their own. My brother and my sister moved out on their own, and then I was just at home until I graduated high school. But now as an adult, I look back and I can see some of the rocky parts. My mother was always the disciplinarian. My stepdad, both of them, never stepped in to discipline us, to set boundaries or rules. It was always my mom, for good and bad. But sometimes in blended families, we can see a struggle of the parent, the step parent, wanting to set those limits and boundaries like the biological parent. And there's some tension there between the child and the step parent in transitioning to that, to adjusting to another form of discipline, or just another disciplinarian in the home. For me, my mother was always that. Overall, I like to say I turned out okay, but I know there are effects from those blended families throughout my childhood. So here is the article, or the short essay that I'm going to massacre her name, by Tanisha Balderas. But she shared this great example of her blended family. So she had a 2- and 3-year-old son, and then she met her husband, Jonathan, and they've been married for 9 years, and they have 2 children together. So they have a 16- and 15-year-old from the first marriage, and then a 7- and 5-year-old from the marriage with Jonathan. And so she goes on to explain how the relationship started at the beginning, but then she also does highlight the discipline factor. And we see this a lot in blended families and homes, where discipline does sort of rub children the wrong way in general, but then to have another parent, a newer parent, be the disciplinarian can be difficult. And so she's talked about this, and just some of from the parent perspective, that I can't give you. And so this, I'll attach it to the email. You'll have this to read, but it's great, and I appreciate her work to put that together. Okay, so as I mentioned in the reflective journal, there is a question about the loyalties in step and blended families. There's some moral behavior, moral reasoning, with a conference talk by Elder Packer at the time. Then the Dear Abby letters, you're going to respond to 2 this week, and they're straightforward. And then the observations and development assignment, there's 3 videos to watch on iLearn. The questions on this document are out of order compared to the order of the videos. So, but they're very easy to understand. There's 1 video about intrinsic motivation, 1 about Malawi and education, and 1 about the Michael Jordan basketball. So you can identify them very easily and answer accordingly there. The other aspect that you'll need to finish up this week is the discussion board. So by now you should have made your initial post on each board. So now you just need to go back and respond to 2 peers on each board, and that will finish up for the week. Come follow me for this week. We're reading these scriptures right here, normally it highlights them for me. Okay, let's pull up this. In Matthew 13, 24 through 30. It's talking about, so it has the picture of the wheat. It's talking about sowing the good seed in the field and how to do that. But what I wanted to highlight here is I thought it was in one of the scriptures. Okay. Was that we encourage our children and adults to be in the world but not of the world. And when every time I read about middle childhood, as a parent, it becomes very apparent to me that the middle childhood years are so vital to set them up for the adolescent years. And we're going to start learning about adolescence next week. But there are so many key factors during the middle childhood years that truly can help them or hurt them during the adolescent years. And so as we try and teach our children to be in the world but not of the world during middle childhood, to how to counteract bullying in the schools or in their church, how to balance the demands of everything at this early age can help them as they continue into the adolescent years. I think I've shared this with you before, but I cannot wait to see the new program from the church for 2020 and beyond in the youth programs and the children's programs. That I love that they're looking at the development of a child, and that I feel that there is added, not pressure, but requirement, a higher law for parents and caregivers and church leaders to help our children at a younger age prepare for their ordinances at baptism, in the temple, as they desire to serve missions, to have families of their own. That so much of that begins at an early age. And middle childhood is a wonderful opportunity to take some of their experiences and build upon that and use them to help them grow and help them learn and prepare for the years to come. That wraps up week 11. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer anything that you need. Otherwise, good luck, everyone.